Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you, everybody, for your presence here. So today we're gonna learn a little bit about social emotional learning. But first, I'd like to ask you guys to take this quick survey, quickness survey. Oop. So we can chat a little bit about. This over here. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Sorry about that. It's slow.
Maybe it's this one here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, that's true. If you can get the QR code, it's in the handout.
Okay, okay.
Maybe it's easier.
Oh, I see.
Yay?
Mhm.
Not yet? Um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Just react to it? I wouldn't have to get on it.
I think that's all we can do.
Oh, okay.
We're hovering.
Can we start? Okay. So, in your opinion, in the bottom of your heart, in your sweetest dreams, what should be the goal of formal education? On your phone, you're gonna put like which one comes first.
I'm sorry.
Professor, you're not participating.
I did it, but I get the phone, I'm very slow without that.
You put in order in the upper part. So just click and drag. Thanks for liking.
Yes.
Smash that subscribe.
Missing 3 people, right? So let's think that is more or less what the result's gonna have. So enlightenment.
Ooh.
So critical
Oh.
thinking, it's on top of the list, right? And personal growth and enlightenment. And the last thing that we want to see in schools is social control or even career preparation. Okay? So I'm gonna go to the next question. In your opinion, what is the goal of formal education today? With your experience, they're the same parameters. Good. So we see that's a little bit different from what we music educators in a graduate course, in a graduate program at OSU think, right? So enlightenment was in third, brings to the bottom, right? And social control is really a harsh parameter comes here, right? We all are educators, we all have to work with education, and that's preoccupied, right? For the third question, who is the responsible to teach the following skills, in your opinion? You can choose between here, I think would be in the left, it's the school, in the right would be family, or the caretakers. So it's like a Likert scale, but instead of strongly disagree, it's school, and instead of strongly agree, it's the parents or caretakers. I thought that would appear here. So I think that here is school, right? So, for example, how to study practice, the school should be responsible. How to behave or have good manners would be school, would be parents, family. Okay, good. So as a collective, we think that behaviors and good manners are more for the part of the family, right? Critical thinking and how to study, it's more about the school. So we think that parents doesn't have to deal much with critical thinking and how to study. And for to be curious, to socialize with others. And responsibility following directions in recycle environment care, among others, right? It's more or less the middle. So that's interesting. Last question. What's your role as a music educator in the children's education? Think about the skills, think about what should be the parameters that formal music education could bring for kids. And what's your role, Michael, Vince, Nancy, in children's lives? Doesn't have to be a paragraph. Just short bits. It's completely anonymous. So you can put just teach music. I don't care about kids. is to foster creative and critical thinking skills in students through music. Inspirer, helper, information provider, opportunity for the students to explore and engage with the world around them independently with music as a chief tool of exploration, as an accompaniment of the process and provide opportunities of learning, to facilitate and nurture a relationship with the potentials of life through and with music. Introduce students to a broad understanding of music, help them to appreciate music, help them to see how music can reach their lives. It's pretty nice, right? And do you think that that matches with all the other responses? For us, I think so, right? Cool. So thank you very much for your participation in this part. So this is just to make an introduction in social emotional learning. So what is social emotional learning? Social emotional learning is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply knowledge. So one of the things that they say is that they help students to have healthy identities, manage emotions, achieve personal and collective goals, have empathy for others, supportive relationships, and responsible and caring decisions. We have those in school? Maybe yes, right? So is the school responsible for that? Maybe yes. So social emotional learning, it's a way that educators try to find out how we can foster all these abilities and skills in school in a formal and structured way. We're gonna talk about that. Yes. So history of SEL. That always started in 1968, between 1968 and 1980, Dr. James Comer at Yale University. That's a specific center there called Child Study Center, Yale University's Child Study Center. And they, in 1968, they started developing a whole child focus in Connecticut. By the early 1980s, the schools that they were trying this new perspective, they saw declining behavior challenges, and the academic performance of the students were higher than the average of the other schools in the country. In 1987, between 1987 and 1992, Timothy Shriver and Dr. Roger Weisberg, this is one of the main guys for SEL, they started the New Heaven Social Development Program that pioneered SEL strategies. From that, until 1992, they started to develop that. In 1994, they had a meeting in Kalamazoo that brought together researchers and teachers and practitioners to try to formalize social emotional learning. And then SEL started to really happen. So Dr. Holly Weisberg, she became the CEO, right, the director that bring together all the efforts to bring SEL in a formal perspective. And then it's a lot of this. Okay. So in SEL, as you can see in the framework, we have 5 specific competences that they say that we as human beings need to develop. I have this short video that, even though I don't like this video a lot because it's like promotional, I think could be informative for us.
Think about the young people in your lives and all the different places where they're learning about themselves, how to relate to others, and work together on goals. How can we intentionally create learning experiences that will help all young people develop and maintain positive relationships, become lifelong learners, and contribute to a more caring, just world? Educators, researchers, community members, families, and the students themselves agree What we need is social and emotional learning, or SEL. SEL is the process through which young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that help us to understand ourselves, connect with others, achieve our goals, and support our communities. We all need opportunities to learn and engage in environments where we feel safe, valued, and a sense of belonging. So how does SEL help schools, families, and communities work together so that all young people have these kinds of learning experiences and achieve success in education, careers, and life? CASTLE's framework identifies 5 areas of competence that together help us develop a healthy sense of who we are, manage stress, understand the views of others, and work together to create schools and communities where everyone can grow their strengths and interests. Self-awareness is about how we think about ourselves and who we are. It includes understanding our culture, our thoughts, feelings, and what we believe we're capable of, and understanding how these things can influence our behaviors and beliefs. Self-management is the ability to manage those emotions, thoughts, and actions in different situations so that we can achieve individual and collective goals. This includes coping with stress and anxiety, persevering through challenges, and taking action to create positive change. Social awareness is how we understand others, how we learn to take different perspectives and empathize, even with people who are different from us. It also includes understanding how the broader norms and systems around us influence how we develop and create a sense of belonging. Relationship skills are how we connect and engage effectively with others, and how we form lasting friendships and connections. This includes communicating clearly, solving problems together, managing conflict and disagreements, and standing up for ourselves and the rights of others. Lastly, responsible decision-making is how we put it all together to make caring and constructive choices. This includes thinking critically about consequences, analyzing the impact of our actions on ourselves and others, and identifying solutions that support our collective well-being. We continue to develop and practice SEL throughout our lives and can adapt and apply these competencies across different contexts and cultures. How we develop SEL is impacted by our environments, which is why we need to work together across classrooms, schools, families, and communities. In the classroom, students can be explicitly taught SEL skills and also can practice and apply SEL during core subjects, like discussing different perspectives in social studies and language arts, or collaboratively problem solving in science or math. SEL is most effective when supported by evidence-based programs and trusting relationships where students are treated as partners in their learning. Beyond the classroom, SEL.
Okay, that's enough. So, an overview of the competencies. So we have the framework here, right? So the video was saying that we have our contexts, right? Classroom, the schools, families and caregivers, and the whole community. And those competencies, they work in different parts of our being, right? Então, have here the core competencies. Self-awareness, it's about what we think about, in short, right? It's what we think about ourselves. Self-management, it's how we deal with things that happen with ourselves. Social awareness, it's how we are positioning in the world, who we are in relationship to others. The relationship skills is how we interact with these others. So I know who I am, I know where I am, how I interact with the context I'm inserted in. And responsible decision making, it's mostly for people not just like act up in the mind, it's just about thinking not about what's best for me, but it's what is best for the context I'm involved. So, we're gonna start with your book, okay? Before that, this, I think, I was enchanted about last week's presentation by Michael. I was thinking, oh man, I cannot go as deep as him. So this presentation, I think it would be more informative with information, which where I'm gonna talk about the books, than to really a deep, thoughtful process where we're gonna get out from here and say, oh my gosh, Michael changed my life. Okay. So this first book was edited by 4 different researchers, but I just put his picture here because he was, since the beginning, he was one of the main people that work with SEL, and that's the main book that I read for this presentation. Okay. Before we delve into this book, inspired by the way, I need to thank you, Nathan Irby, because he lent me all 3 out of 4 books I have. So thanks, Nathan. I was inspired by this book, The ABC of My Feelings in Music, which is a book where each letter of the alphabet has some feelings, and he suggests some musics to match this book, the feelings we see in the alphabet. Inspired by that, I cannot put some music here for us to listen for an hour, but I got some pictures, some paintings about music that you're gonna see through the presentation. So if you're bored, then just stop listening to me. Just think about which emotion the painting that you're seeing resembles for you, okay? And then write down if you like to. It's not a test. I'm not taking the hand off yet, so it's for you. So part 1 of this book is the foundations of social and emotional learning. And this book works with several articles, not articles, but chapters, and each chapter is very different from another, even though they're talking more or less about the same thing. Okay, I don't think I'm gonna go through all of them, but just the main ones that I think that might interest you. The first one, it's like the first one that you have to read about social emotional learning. Talks about the person-centered focus, the environmental focus, and teaches more or less how everything started. And with a review they did in 2003, with 80 national programs and 30% of them promoting SEL along with academic outcomes, and 83% of them producing academic gains. So one of the big things here is that, oh, my kids are better, but are they scoring best in the tests? So that's a huge concern, not just for teachers, maybe not for teachers, but for administrators and politicians. So a big part of this chapter is saying SEL is not just to make people happy, it also helps your school with scores. I didn't like at all about this too. Here's an interesting one toward a broader education because it teaches us. It states which skills should we focus on. So, what makes a person better? It's so subjective, right? So in this chapter, he's saying, oh, you should try to focus on this. You should try to focus on this, and to focus on this, you need to do this and this and this. So I think it's very helpful for teachers. Teacher preparation is an interesting one too for us that will be teacher trainers, and talks about the in-task standards and the Illinois professional teaching standards that took a lot of SEL on these terms to teacher training. And they say they put 11 standards, things from content knowledge to professional conduct that are based in SEL. The second part of the book is a little bit more practical. So each one of these chapters, they talk about a specific problem that existed or exists right now. The first one, it's a strategy, skill building framework that the authors use in their programs. Social development, SEL talks about the Seattle Social Development Project that use both teacher and parent training to help work with SEL and the students. Resolving Conflict Creativity Program. It was a program in New York in 1994 with 350 teachers, with 11,000 students in 15 schools. So they use a child and teacher report assessment, and they, from this research, they had some suggestions for implementation. This for Nati, promoting alternative thinking strategies. That's a specific methodology that has a instruction manual with 6 volumes, 3 units, 131 lessons specifically in SEL and how to use them in the school setting, and community in schools. So there's a child development program, and there's a quote that I like it: when needs of belonging, autonomy, and competence are met through school community, there's more effect bonding and commitment with the school. Okay, so when talking about saying, oh, my students don't care about the school, they put everything to the ground, that's something that might be interesting, not just for the academics. There's this last part that's like a wrap up of the book with recommendations. So through research, after all these articles and chapters and research, they can state some findings. So SEL provides a safe and caring environment, works with a caring relationship between student and teacher, promotes cooperative learning, family participation, helps the instruction content. So it's not about just about working SEL separate from for English or math, but together. Gives more confidence, that therefore provides more learning, improves the learning, and the student self-organization. It's needed, but it's provided with SEL. And there's some recommendations for implementation, for teachers, and for administrators. So that's the book I read more fully, and some personal analysis of the book. So that's a great book as literature to use when researching about it. So there's a good, well done research and academic literature and real cases. So if you guys are looking for something like that, that's a really good book. If you're researching how music improves blah blah blah, how music improves literacy, that's a good reference too. There's many successes cases that happens in different settings with different focus, with different outcomes. That is it's the same thing, but it is sort of the same thing, but it's so broad that sometimes you think that it's those contexts are different. Well, the contexts are different, but the goals more or less has the same root. A little bit of criticism. Reading all the articles, I felt a little bit in most of them that they similar to airport bestsellers. You know, 10 ways of being rich, 5 tips to be blah blah blah. So I was a little bit uncomfortable of like almost every chapter say, oh, we did that in 5 steps. Oh, we implemented that in, yeah. So and since they are so different, with different focus and different outcomes, each one has a recipe. You say, oh, those are different kinds of food, right? for the same for kind of have different recipes. So even though, and I understand it's how they set up and how the researchers are thinking that might be helpful for who is learning, but I just felt the same. Oh my gosh! If I need to follow all these articles, I have like 595 tasks that I need to accomplish to work with SEL, and could be tricky. So the second book that I focus a little bit more, that I focus a little bit less, was Music Education in Social Emotional Learning by Scott Edgar. He's a professor in Michigan. But he went to Bowling Green and then to another, he did his master's here in Ohio too. So I suppose he's from Ohio, but I'm not sure. And he did his doctorate in Michigan, so.
It's okay.
So for this book, the first chapter, it's the best chapter if you ever like, I'm gonna read the first thing at all in my life about social emotional learning, I would suggest this chapter. He's saying why music and SEL, and for us music teachers, I think that would be the best approach. In this part, this section, he talks about socialization in the music classroom, and one thing that I think that's interesting here is that, say, music is social, right? When we're in a band, an orchestra, an choir, or in any ensemble, we need to socialize necessarily to make music together. So we're a step ahead of the math teacher, the Portuguese teacher, the English teacher, right? It talks a little bit about bullying in the music classroom. Music educators are not counselors, which is important because sometimes people say, but I need to take care about my kids. And we need to learn how to share responsibility. The second part of the book talks specifically about music education and self-awareness and self-management, which are the specific competences of SEL. Social awareness and relationship skills, responsible decision making, and talks about the Illinois social emotional learning. And for all chapters, there's the goal, the learning standards, the student skill set, activities assessment. So it's very practical. So I have one here. Let's save it. So there's a little introduction. So chapter 5, little introduction. The Illinois social emotional learning goal 1. And then they have the goal, the student skill set, the music goal they're gonna do, and the activities. They have activity 1, activity 2. So if you're interested in doing some activities of that in the music classroom, that's could be an interesting book. Okay. And the conclusion, the heart of music education, that's just some experience statements. Say, oh, music education works so much well for me, and blah blah blah. It's good. It's good to read. If you need some statements to your principal, might be some. My personal analysis of this book, it's a best book. It's a better book for music education practitioners, as Vince that teaches 8 hours a day and don't have time to go through all the literature. If you still wanted to know something about it, that would be a more interesting book, right? For practitioners, I think it would be enough introductory literature in the first section specifically, and there's useful examples in the second section. Now, this one here, it's portraits of music education and SEL, also edited by Scott Edgar. He is the main guy in music education and SEL. And it's not a research book at all. It has many sections. First is elementary, the one's middle school, high school, and the last one is adapting SEL for all musicians, specifically adaptations for neurodiverse learners. Okay, so it's case. Specific teachers, they have cases that they work with SEL, and they present the case here, an example for the reader. Some chapters that might be interesting. Teenage mood swings. Right? In high school, there's orchestra, choir, band, but also there's the journey of a teacher that teaches high school that might be interesting to learn. Okay, I got here an example for you guys to see. So I got this example for the high school band director. There's an introduction, and there's he talks about some activities that he discovered and he does with his classroom. So there's some pictures and they working with SEO in their campus. So it's not research at all. It's much more about what I had and what I did with SEO. So let's try ourselves, okay? I brought some surveys for us. Just want to show this one for the student. That would be a survey you'd give to your student to think a little bit about your classroom, or if you're in a bigger contest, a bit, about your school. So it's, I like coming to school every day. I feel safe at school. I have friends at school. People care about each other in my class. So it'll be more like a diagnosis for the students and a diagnosis about your class and how people are feeling about your class. Because sometimes we can look in the face of the people and say, I don't know how I'm doing. And that might be helpful, okay? I love this painting. I didn't know that. So let's try ourselves. I like to split. Here in the last page, we have a workbook that they provide in the SEL website. So there's 5 boxes here, one for each competency. But what I like to do would be like Natin Vince, Vinci Melissa, Michael, Alice, sorry, Nick and Gutin. And we have 9, so you guys want to do one together, or want to do one by yourself?
I can do it by myself or whatever.
Is it okay?
If you want like a greater variety, that's fine.
Okay, so you guys get the first one, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Okay? Just 5 minutes doing. Whoop.
The one that.
Yeah, the one I assign you, and then we discuss a little bit later. Okay?
Can I take a look at it? Can I take a look at
Oh,
it?
sorry, I saw the.
I have another one.
I have many. I saw your paper. I thought you had it. Sorry.
Oh, okay, so. We have goal. Is this what you do?
That's an example.
And like, do I do this?
I do it all the time.
I think in
I mean, I always make sure that I ask
your
open-ended
honest, just
questions.
an example of
Oh,
what it could look like.
Okay.
How's it going? What's up? What are you doing this week? Yeah, how was your weekend? What did you do this week? I try to check in, like every day, whenever I can. How's it going today? Instead of like, are you okay? You know,
Well, if you see them like
like,
outside,
are you having a good day? I don't ask that, I ask how are you? Because are you having a good day? It's yes or no. You know.
I used to be anxious about this, but I am
Here.
So I feel like we don't find out much. So I feel frustrated today because I want That's me. I
Well,
a lot.
It looks like the same about all of them except for the second to last one.
Yep.
Which is demonstrate respect.
I don't know how much I talk about myself, but I'm never like trying to assign blame.
Actually, might be something. Like I want to be
Giving constructive
authentic,
feedback.
but I might
And I know
not
the
be.
personal setting, I feel like the last one I get used to.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna say, okay, let's try this again, and this time, let's focus on this.
Yeah, and then I give them this, I often give them,
So they know.
this is specific. Responsibilities and needs.
The example, did you read the example? I thought like it helped. I didn't
Depending
know
on the
that.
age, like
I understand
little
some of you are
ones,
fasting and
it's
then
not, like,
there are some
I
activities
wouldn't say
that
never, but it's good.
Oh, yeah.
Fairly,
Every
but I wasn't teaching them a little bit, I started in
Oh, yeah.
So, I tried to find ways.
Yeah, like in my high school, It's like it got more so with age.
I feel like
The little kids
Mhm.
I
pretty much
have an understanding, in the past, I'm not
need
counting
the
now,
law,
but,
or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
but then middle school a little more, and then high school I tried to.
But like in my last
I think
one,
that's
with the
natural.
name, I felt like I had an understanding of like the cultural backgrounds of my students and like how that impacted them. I don't know that I was like totally in tune with every single.
And I get better to music.
I mean, like I didn't have any students.
Like I said, for one with like their music background, very because it's such a part of
Or like
music.
that had like
Feedback and then we just try to fix it every year again.
those sorts of traditions.
Yeah,
So I haven't had to like
I don't
navigate
do
that
this
before.
all.
But then like you just saying it, like maybe I
Try to
figured
think
it out.
of
I don't know.
opportunities.
Like I never had to serve it as like tradition or knowledge.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't have
Or
that
to like improve until like the next assessment.
Yeah.
We were talking about that in my class last night, when I go to teaching science or something.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Growth mindset.
Oh.
And how
Not
they
stuff
never
like
have
that,
a
but
chance
like,
to like
I'm
make
looking at
mistakes.
students
It's
grade
like, okay, here's your
so-and-so's
choices,
ready.
great now.
Or, you know, say their name, or like,
Are they
I
ever
love that
actually
you.
like,
I definitely
learn
I
how
don't.
the skills they're
I'm in
proficient in?
Yeah.
I'm in
But they're
a
never
culturally
gonna
relevant
know
state. I just thought that great college. I really love it. We talk a lot about this in general.
It's still probably not coming up on a
Yeah.
protest because they just got
Yeah.
their grade and then we moved
So
on.
I don't-
We never
Yeah.
like, there was no like corrections or anything.
Yeah.
Some teachers.
And it can be overlooked, like I remember, all my daughter needed extra help in school, and so they would do a thing where she could do corrections for half credit.
That's what my high school taught us.
Yeah.
And she was allowed to do that,
For me.
so that was
what I
helpful,
do
but then
is
she started
I would,
using that
I
as a
would
crutch, like,
ask
so you gotta look at
like some
some of those things. Yeah, they're smart and
Thank
knowledgeable.
you.
Oh, yeah.
Do in this week.
One of the
If you feel like it's fun,
I was talking about, and then she was
Yeah.
like tell me about the story, and sometimes like through those questions.
went right there. It's
Thank
like
you.
it's unrated.
Yay.
Yeah.
So, my question for you guys now is, what do you guys, not necessarily collectively, but what do you guys always do? What you guys never thought about doing, and but never, and if you agree or not with some things that they say that we should do. Can we start with Vince and Nati?
Sure. I always ask my students open-ended questions about what they think. I feel like towards the end of my undergraduate time and then right when I started teaching, it was like during the pandemic. And there was a really big push on making sure that we're asking kids open-ended questions. So for example, instead of asking, "Are you okay?" ask, "How are you doing today?" So that gives the student an opportunity, instead of a binary yes or no, or like I'm fine, it gives you an opportunity. It gives the student an opportunity to kind of expand on how they're feeling, and it allows them to reflect more deeply than just a surface level, good, not good.
Mhm.
So I do that in not just like emotionally, but just, I try to do that with any question that I ask my kids.
Is there anything that you guys don't do as often, or that you don't agree that it's an important thing?
I think we agreed that everything was important.
Yeah, everything is important. I think it depends on the context. I feel less inclined to set aside time for them to reflect on what they are learning and make connections with small children, like with really young children. But for older students, I do it.
Mm.
But I think that depends on the level of progress that I see of development.
Mm.
But it could be interesting, and I didn't think about it. We can do it.
Okay, thank you. Vince and Melissa, how about you?
I mean, I think we, except for most of these, we do them often. I was talking we were talking a little bit about like we're giving constructive feedback and opportunities to improve, about how that's like in a rehearsal setting, that's kind of built into what we do in rehearsal. We're always giving feedback and then immediately trying to work on whatever we need to work on. And we also talked a little bit about how it varies by level.
Yeah, I mean, just because I taught K through 12, so especially, you know, like the last one, allowing them to take on meaningful responsibilities and lead routines, like that looks very different from first grade to high school. So I did those things, but it didn't happen as often with the little ones, you know, but it was something that I did really try to do a lot with the high school students and even in the middle school. So yeah, I think I answered often for all of them, except, you know, for that last one.
I'm thinking about commenting, but I don't think we're gonna do that. Michael and Alex.
For me, I feel like I'm a fairly socially aware person. Like I think a lot about, like you talked about showing other people, demonstrating and showing people how to express empathy, highlighting differing opinions, recognizing and apologizing when I've done something wrong, and building trusting relationships with other significant adults in their lives. We both like totally agree with that. The one that we were in between on was demonstrating respectful awareness of important events, traditions, and cultural expression. Like, of course, you would do that by default if you knew, but I feel like I didn't always have a good mechanism of like highlighting all of the cultural traditions of all of my students. Yeah.
Yeah, we were discussing about one of the OSU's cultural policies, which is, from what I know, one of my class, the teacher, she was saying if you have any of your culture's festival, it is fine, you take an absence from that class. And I do know about that. So, but for me and my student, I would not just spontaneously ask her, what's your culture would be like. I would embed like a simple questions in front of every lesson. I would be like, what do you do in this weekend that is memorable to you? This is the Halloween. It's a, what do you do? Like this, like short and simple questions. So from those questions, I could know about her cultural story or something else. So this is what I did, but I would not spontaneously acquire virus cultural knowledge.
Thank you.
So I did the fourth one, the relationship skills. So I'm just gonna highlight the first and third ones because those are the ones that I checked as sometimes. The others I checked as often. So the first one, model active listening. I feel like I do this relatively well with students, but I can sometimes insert my own thought and opinion a little too soon. I'm quite direct and very straightforward. And yeah, I know. Quite direct, very low BS tolerance and things like that. And just kind of get right to the point, and sometimes that can bulldoze. I realize that, and the conversations can be a little bit taxing when with me. And then the third one, create opportunities for them to learn about cultures, experiences, and views different from their own. I sometimes did this, and it was mostly just because the example they gave, which I thought was not a good example at all. I think that is fine, but in the sense of how it relates to like what I did in the music classroom, not so much. And frankly, I wasn't always aware of that, and where I taught was a very monochromatic look, shall we say, and 98% white, something like that. So the opportunities for any outside of Northwest Ohio people to be in the school were very limited, and the interactions that our students had were extremely limited. So I feel like I do that to some degree, but I just didn't even know in the school environment. They didn't necessarily intersect with me. We did what we could to, play music from other cultures with a limited degree within the confines and expectations of the district. So, to some degree, I would say. Otherwise, off on the rest of it.
Thank you. Good team.
I want to talk about the first overchoice and support and choose things to pros and cons of each. A few days ago, I asked a father, he has two child, one is 22 and one is 8. So I asked him how he educates his second children. And I asked he a question, will he let his children, his son, to participate his study plan? And he said yes. And I asked that if you two have have some different points in this study plan, will he how you can what thing you will do? And he told me that he told me he will give them this choice and told his son what happened if he select this choice. So his son will select his choice from his son's heart. So his son needs to know what choice will happen if he choose, and it can help him to be independent or become more control about his life. But in class, I think sometimes I didn't have more time to tell lots of sentence to the children. A class this week I teach in K to school, yes, and I teach them a Chinese song, which is about tea, and a kid told me that he didn't want to sing the Chinese song. He didn't want to sing sing this song about tea. He didn't because this song have need to picking the tea. He told me he didn't want to picking the tea. So I asked him, so do you don't want to if you don't want to pick the tea with us, you can drink tea with us. You can why say just nothing? You can drink tea with us. You can pray with us. You can. I give that he lots of choice, so he participates in the class right now. But I didn't tell him told him the pros and cons. But I think maybe he feeling in that time. So.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Wait.
I can talk about the second, like invite students to participate in decision making by offering their perspective and generating ideas. Like for example, when the students like to choose their instruments, yes, at first we will at least demonstrate some instrument for them and at least like show some videos if we could. Actually, we will give them some time to explore those different kind of instruments, but I will give them some perspective from my opinion. It's like if you have like basically if you have a like short like hand, maybe it's not suitable for the bass. Yeah, something like that. Suggestions I will give those students. Yeah, students could choose like whatever they want. So that is a good thing, but some the skills things I should like remind them at first.
Right. Thank you. So those forms I found on a 60-minute, that's less than 60-minute course that they have in the website. So if you're more interested, you can do this course. It's like you choose the time and you choose whatever however you want to do the course. It's very helpful if you're interested in this. One thing that I really think about this is that I don't agree with all these things. Like it wouldn't work for me, and I think that's okay because even though I don't agree with some things that it's here, help me to create awareness of, oh yeah, that's true. I don't do that. Should I do that? Or why is that here? I wouldn't do that at all. But just for creating the opportunity to figure out what other things that can be done would be interesting. And of course, depends on context. You have like 80 years old, it's different from having 18 years old, right? To end the presentation, I don't know. Oh my gosh.
How did you
Technology
get
is so
recording?
good. Huh?
I said, how did you get my recording?
It's your YouTube channel. So end the presentation, I just put up some questions for discussion or just for reflection. What are the benefits that SEL might offer to students that a natural caring teacher might not teach, might not reach? So should we do the course in order to help students? Or if we are a teacher that care about the student, we are like in the way of doing it. So that's something else that I think about is that if you ask for every teacher in the world, they say, oh, of course I care about my students. Of course I care about their education and about how they behave. Do they? Right? So I think even though SEL is a nice thing to do, and even though all teachers would say that, I think SEL is a good thing to just to promote in order to make people think about what they do actually doing. Do you as a teacher feel the need for a more systematic approach to help develop students' emotions and social skills, or you do by yourself? Something, it's one of the first phrases they have in the website. The principles of SEL are present in every caring, collaborative relationship and live in the partnerships between students, schools, families, and communities throughout history. That means that they're trying to take together all these perspectives of caring about the students and what they're doing, putting together. But we don't need to rely on SEL to promote a better development for our students. That's what I think. What's our purpose in teaching? Is it music? Is it this competencies in the students? If my principal and colleagues are not interested in SEL, what can I do in my classroom or my school? So many initiatives started the past 30 years. Are we better? Are schools better? Is that enough? And finally, how social media plays a role and how it can be used with all these competencies, not necessarily SEL. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Has anybody received training, formal training in SEL, or required to implement it? So why don't you tell us about it, Vince, what your experience is?
In my last district, I think this was also because of COVID, we had a lot of SEL training. So we've even like done things like this before, like the surveys.